I'm Daniel Laptu with the Dascalia Christian Apologetics Ministry. This video is the sixth in a series being done on The Shack by William P. Young. Since there are previous videos in the series, if you have not seen them, please go back and watch them. In the previous videos, we talked about certain topics, one of them being who God is. This video is going to look at a very similar topic, how God works. This video is going to look at how God's sovereignty relates to the problem of evil. The book, The Shack, is meant to be a book to help people with their grief and how they deal with evil in the world. And since this is a key issue in Christianity, how to deal with evil, this video is going to help work through this issue. I also hope that this video is helpful to other people, even if they're not looking up The Shack itself. Since this is an important issue, I hope that this video is edifying to other people who are not necessarily working in The Shack. Let's look at a couple biblical accounts to see how evil is related to God. The first story is that of Joseph. The favorite son of Jacob is beaten by his jealous brothers, thrown into a well, sold to slavery. All of this led to Joseph being imprisoned by Pharaoh, serving him, being falsely accused of rape, and being imprisoned even longer. Eventually, Joseph's taken out of prison. He works through the ranks of Egypt and eventually heads up the household of Pharaoh. This made it possible for Joseph's family, who previously beat him, to flee to Egypt during a famine while they were in Canaan, to find food and water which they didn't have in their homeworld, which also led to the creation of the nation-state of Israel. During all this, Joseph comments on these events in Genesis 50:20, saying, "As for you, his brothers who beat him and sold him, you meant for evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it that many people should be kept alive as they are today." We see from this passage not only God used what happened for his benefit, but literally God meant it for good. This is more than God turning a frown upside down or making the best of a bad situation. It is God intentionally decreeing and working something out for the good of his people for his own glory. God is not only aware of and trying to patch things up, but he is actively making evil things happen, like the abuse of Joseph, to bring about his own purposes, like the creation of Israel. Another biblical account to look at is that of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Here we have the death of an innocent man. He is the greatest teacher ever known to the world. He is a healer of the sick, feeder of the hungry, and a miracle worker. More so than all of that, he's sinless, never doing anything wrong or deserving of death. Yet he was brought before the courts. His own religious leaders found him guilty and had him slaughtered. The worst form of punishment ever known to man, crucifixion, happened to Jesus. This scattered his followers and depressed those who loved him. This is worse than even a child being brutally killed, because Jesus was innocent. A young child at least has original sin, whereas Jesus was undeserving of any punishment at all. Yet God allowed this to happen. In fact, he did more than allow it to happen. In Isaiah 53, Isaiah prophesied about this, and God told everyone of his coming in Genesis 3. John writes about this salvation that comes through Christ from being from before the foundations of the world. God not only let Jesus be crucified, not only did he know it was going to happen, but caused it to help happen for the salvation of his people. The worst evil ever performed, the death of the Son of God, a truly innocent man, is decreed and planned on by God to bring about his greatest glory. So the question must be asked, is God evil for doing these things? The answer is no, for several reasons. The first is that the greatest good is what God is working out his plans, and that he is glorified. We are created, the world was created, for one reason alone, God's glory. And if this is how God is best glorified, then it is the greatest good. In the act of Christ, you see the fullness of God, his wrath coming to bear among Christ for his people, and God's love being displayed, providing a way for salvation and forgiveness of sins. So God working out his greatest good, even if what we think is evil to do it, is still God being glorified. There is no gratuitous evil in the Christian worldview. The second reason why God is not evil is because God is not directly responsible for the evil or sinful acts. God lets the sinful hearts of sinful men act sinfully as they would naturally. So God is not actually doing the evil. He has just decreed it. He's purposed it. He's indirectly making it happen. But it is the sinful acts of men who are directly responsible for their evil acts coming from their lustful hearts. In fact, where God decides to override human will, it is to prevent sin, like how Abraham's wife did not sleep with Abimelech because God restrained his lustful evil in Genesis 26. The third reason is that evil is done, or if people are harmed, it's not an offense, because no man is truly innocent. If something is done that hurts someone, they're deserving of it. God is justified in the punishment of sin. And if he brings about this judgment on people, he's justified to do so. And finally, we do not know the purposes of why God does what he does. In a debate, I once heard it claimed that God was evil since the Holocaust happened. Later in that same debate, he said that God is evil because babies die. The theists in the debate responded that maybe the baby who dies is going to be the next Hitler. So when a criticism is brought up against evil, how do we know that this is actually not the best thing to happen? We see that God purposes all things that happen, even the evil things that happen. And God is not simply fixing the problem, but rather has planned out and decrees everything to happen for his glory. It is said that God's sovereignty is the pillow which the saint can rest his head. We see that in the shack, God does not operate as the Bible lays out. In fact, the God of the shack is much less powerful and very weak. Unlike the God of the Bible, the God of the shack is not purposing anything. The God of the shack states, just because I work incredible good out of unspeakable tragedies, doesn't mean that I orchestrate the tragedies. Here is God saying that he is not sovereign, he is not in control of all that happens. Many times in the book, God is careful to point out that he doesn't have any impact on man's free will. One of these times are seen on page 125, when God straight up says that he does not violate one human will. The question must be asked, the question that is raised, is that is God bound by human freedom? Then, if this is true, how is God ever going to succeed? Isn't it possible that men continually disrupt what God is trying to do? What if God tries to fix a problem and man freely disrupts even that? Although the God of the shack has knowledge of the future, it seems that God is just running around trying to fix up people's messes. God says creation has been taken on a very different path than what we desired. This is a far cry from the God that's in Job, that asked Job, "Who are you, O man?" And the main issue of the book, the death of Mac's daughter, God straight up says, I didn't purpose this. It is clear that the God of the shack is simply running around hoping to fix up and clean up people's mess. He's not powerful, he's not purposeful, and he's not done anything intentionally. The shack provides no comfort to those who are struggling, because there is simply no hope in a God who is limited. Even if God is mostly powerful, there is still a chance that he can fail. Humanity, in this view, is actually more powerful than God. So I ask, why are Christians comfortable, or even comforted by, a God who has no real power, or any truly ability to resolve problems? Is it because we prefer a God who respects our opinions instead of a God who is truly all-powerful? Why must we turn to a false, weak God? Why can we not trust God's will that he is working all things out for the greatest good? Why are we, as a church, excited about this God who provides no true hope, since humans can always overcome God's power? I am Dale Aptu with the Didaskalia Christian Apologetics Ministry. Thanks for your time to watch this video. Have a great day, and God bless.